Welcome back to War Thunder. Welcome aboard the LA-11 for first impressions. And I have to say, the LA-11 is a strange vehicle to look at. So let's just talk through certain hard stats. First of all, the LA-11 is a recently added rank 4 battle rating 5.3 Soviet premium fighter, and it has three 23mm NS-23 cannons with 75 rounds each, nose mounted above the engine, centrally mounted, and yeah, those are the hard facts. Do I think the plane is worth the purchase? Well, there are a few arguments for it and against it. If you just purely want to go for grinding, no, there are better aircraft. Especially if you can get your hand on the premium Spitfire, it's a no-brainer. Or even the LA-7 Dolgushkins. It's a fantastic plane with a lower battle rating and also 20mm guns. I will come to this back in a moment. So first impressions, I actually wanted to make a plane review on this plane, but the plane just, it provides me with a lot of difficulties. I probably had different expectations to what I should have had, because it's an LA-11, so it should be a bit like an LA-9, and overall it is. The shape of the aircraft, the model beautifully designed, even the cockpit, so everything is just there. And the LA-9 for me was always a monster. The LA-11 kind of shares certain characteristics with it. The LA-11 was developed from the LA-9 as a long-range bomber escort fighter in real life. And that brings a few advantages and disadvantages with it. First of all, compared to the LA-9, you lose one of the 23mm, but you have theoretically increased fuel capacity, but in War Thunder you don't get an advantage from that. But as a bomber escort, a long range, you always think about the American P-51, don't you? So let's compare it to it. And the weaponry is completely different, and in this respect, you will not believe what I'm saying right now. I prefer the P-51. So this is the long shadow of the TU4, because in the aftermath of the TU4 introduction, you know about the disaster. I will not talk too much about it. I actually, how to say it, I felt that the 23s did less and less damage in order to trying to balance the TU4 out, but it never really worked out that way. So in this respect, the LA-11 suffers from the nerf to the 23s, and that really hurts because you have a high rate of fire, you have a slow muzzle velocity, and you don't have an awful amount of ammunition. So in this respect, it's completely the opposite of a P-51 armament. Let's have a quick look at the muzzle velocity of the Stealth Belt, because it's pure API shells, and they have a muzzle velocity of 610 meters per second, but they seem to fall off rather drastically. In this respect, the overall characteristics is similar to the German 30mm Mk103 weapon system overall. The air targets have 3 FIT shells and 1 API shell. And that is, they just don't seem to do the damage. So yeah, I don't trust the weapons. That's the basic message. And the high rate of fire actually, lets you run through an awful amount of your ammunition rather quickly. Like, you can run through nearly the entirety of your ammunition account without overheating the engines. I'm actually side climbing here, or spiral climbing over our bases, because I anticipate the bombers, and I cannot kind of compete with something like a Spitfire. More on this in a moment. So I just want to go through certain, arguments that I made note of while I was flying the plane for the first 10 rounds or so. The plane has one massive drawback, and that is the high altitude performance. It simply is not good. At an altitude of 4.7 kilometers, the web shuts down. It grays out, you have no more power increase. And that really hurts this plane. In this respect, again, the P-51 is much better. Let's have a look at the engagement of this Sterling. A lot of hits into him, but I just made one engine smoke. Speaking about engines, yeah, that's a Sterling. It's not the most heavily defensive capable gunship, so to speak, in all of War Thunder. Yeah, let's have a look how it works out. One hit and I have a fuel leak. Yeah. To make it short, the engine dies really, really quickly to defensive fire, and if you have bad luck, you actually black out the engine and it begins to burn. And then it burns through. You will not extinguish the fire. I had not a one single incident where I extinguished the fire. But now I actually got the hits into one of the wings, and I was very lucky that also my pilot was not pilot sniped. In fact, your pilot gets hit quite a bit, but it doesn't get knocked out. I'm not quite sure if this has something to do with the armor around the cockpit or something. Yeah, it's very difficult to make a statement about that, you know. I mean, I could look at the hangar and tell you that the LA-11 actually has a little bit of front plating, bulletproof glass, 55 millimeters, and the rear of the pilot is protected by 66 millimeters of glass. That is actually modeled like steel, and a steel plating of 8.5 millimeters for the back of the pilot. So yeah, but frontally there is not much protection. Another thing is the sailing characteristics of this plane are fantastic. One incident I was knocked out, my engine was knocked out 17 kilometers away from the runway at an altitude of 3.5 kilometers, and I sailed back the entirety of the way and landed safely. That's fantastic. The next thing is you actually can nose land the plane, but you have to be careful to not just simply flip it. So yeah, let's compare it up until this point. The high altitude performance is not really great. You don't have that much climb rate to compete with something like a Griffon Spitfire. The maneuverability is not the best, but it's certainly not bad. Your performance is best at low altitude, but you're not as good as an LA9. The flight model seems overall a bit more heavy than an LA9, despite the loss of one 23mm gun. And yeah, the guns, they don't really work that well. This is the best battle that I could pull out of my hat so far. And so far, it was one bomber kill that just damaged me heavily, and I could return to base because I was practically above it. I did side climbing. So this is a very passive playstyle that I don't like. I cannot really engage the enemy aggressively. Even with high altitude advantage or altitude advantage, you should be rather careful. However, this thing seems to be rather nice in energy fighting at low altitudes. So yeah, but you again need speed. If you lack the speed, it's difficult. Talking about speed, I could go above 800 kilometers an hour without redlining. That's quite something. Again, the plane is really beautifully modeled. I like the look of it, but I don't like the performance. Simple as that. Now let's talk about if it's worth purchasing. Well, it has absolutely no ground strike capabilities in terms of rockets or bombs, but the 23mm are something that you better learn to deal with, as you know, certain high... Yeah, just a critical hit, one pilot was knocked out, that's it. As you know, the 23mm are the meta for the Russian jets. A lot of the Russian jets have 23mm, either as their major armament or main armament, or as backup weapons. So so the MiG-9s, the MiG-15s, even the MiG-17s, they have guns with the same characteristics. They might not be the very same, but you just kind of get the thing. With the high battle rating jets, you have the NS-23 on the MiG-15, the NR-23 on the MiG-15 bis, like on the MiG-17, but the Yak-30 has also NR-23s Also, a lot of the bombers like the IL-28, the Tu-14T, and the Tu-4 have 23 millimeters defensive gunners, so you better get used to it. Also, the LA-15 and the rare LA-174 have 23 millimeter cannons, and between the NR-23s and the NS-23s, there is not that much difference overall in performance. That's the message. So, I have my second kill in the bag, and again, it's time to return to base. At this moment, I'm kind of defenseless. The plane overall has a decent speed on the deck, but it's not reaching the speeds that I'm used to from the LA-9. Again, that's practically because it's refitted for long-range operations. So, yeah. Do I think that the plane lacks firepower compared to the LA-9? Not really. You have the same amount of ammunition per gun. They are practically the same. And if you get hit by 323s or 423s, it doesn't make that much of a difference that you would expect. It's the lack of performance overall that hurts you, not really the amount. I mean, yeah, sure. In a lot of situations, you might think, if I just had another additional gun or something like this. But overall, it didn't really occur to me that, I have just 3 instead of 4. One thing more that I have to talk about is that you can split the guns. You can split the guns. So you have 1 for primary and 2 for secondary armament, I guess, or the other way around. But the guns are split. So here you can admire my nose landing, and yeah, it's not that easy, but you can pull it off, which is then good for a faster repair time overall. Again, when this plane is on fire, you burn through and you die. If a wing gets damaged, you have severe problems with your damage model. Everything is kind of decent but not spectacular. There is not a single selling point that I just, can say, oh, that's the thing where the plane really shines. Again, let's compare it to the rest of the premium planes. I think the LA-7, the Dolgushkin's LA-7, is better in killing fighters, not so good at killing bombers. Then we have the P-63C5 as a reward and the P-63A10 also as a reward, I guess. And they can make short work out of bombers, and they have fantastic flight models at lower battle rating. Then there is the Yak-3 VK-107. I'm not really convinced by that either. Then there is the Focke-Wulf 190D9, which I overall think is a worse plane at low altitude, also in terms of maneuvering. However, it has the edge in weaponry. That tells you a lot. Then there is also the fantastic premium Spitfire Mark 9C, and if you can get your hands on that one, it's, a no-brainer. Get your hands on it. You can grind for days. It's easy mode. You might hate me for that opinion, but that's just simply what I experience. You have the functional guns, you have backup machine guns, you have a fantastic climb rate, you have good high altitude performance, you have excellent maneuverability, and even your diving characteristics are not bad, despite what certain people say or claim. The vehicle is just better. So, what again is the selling point of the LA-11? Again, it's the 23s, but they are bad. So, with the next update, that might change. If they get back their punch, you might reconsider buying this, but for the moment I cannot really say, yeah, buy this plane. On the other hand, the complete tier 5 section of Russian planes rely on 23 millimeters. In fact, there is not a single plane that does not have 23 millimeters. The Yak-15s, Yak-30s, I just mentioned it before. So if you want to use it for training, sure, go for it. Get the experience. If you want to have it just for grinding, get something else, because I just simply didn't have the results. In fact, if I would have just flown a regular I-185 M71 or a Yak-9 variant, even the Yak-9U, I would have gotten more income, despite having no talisman, because the results were just that disappointing. You need to have 2 to 3 kills per battle in order to just simply, you know, grind decently with a premium plane. But there is the different spectrum of having premiums that are too strong that actually rule the combat. In this respect, you can't complain about the LA11. In this respect, it's a rather balanced premium. I know this sounds weird, but it doesn't make problems. Normally, I think, yeah, sure, I can deal with Germans, and you can deal with Germans, no problem about that. But you have a much harder time dealing with Germans compared if you are in a normal, regular Russian tier 4 fighter plane. Now, my first impressions, yeah, again, it's a lot of statements and a lot of numbers and a lot of impressions. Overall, the first impressions are not good. So I think I have to wait for another patch before I can make a proper plane review on this thing. The major problem isn't the lack of high altitude performance or the overall lack of climb rate, or that the web cuts out at 4.7 kilometers altitude. I just think overall the plane lacks the punch, the killing power. In this respect, when you have 50 cals that don't work, you have kind of the same experience, but with 50 cals, you can spray a bit more. I know that sounds weird, but you can get that lucky shot if you're really desperate. You can also ground strike. I do not recommend it, but if you hunt the last player and he's in a bomber at 9 kilometers altitude, you can harvest a bit more RP by just simply going after pillboxes, which you can destroy. You can destroy them as well with the 23s, but it takes an awful amount of ammunition, which you just simply don't have. Yeah. Again, you can see it here in the conversation in the chat. I talked to another guy that owns this plane, and I asked him a little bit about of his impressions, and it kind of covers it. He doesn't have such a bad one. By the way, I know that in this respect I had still the combat flaps attached, but the overall, I didn't have it in the other few matches that also defined my opinion on the plane. Eventually I will realize it, and it does have nothing to do with the web cutting out at 4.7. We will experience it in a moment. So I actually tried to get a bit more speed at altitude to punch through that line, and now you can see the web grays out. Now there it is. And that is just, you need overall always an altitude advantage of 6 kilometers if you really want to engage your enemies, but also overall the performance of the engine is not really convincing. So at this moment, let's just see how it goes when we just simply wait for the last two enemies to show themselves. I didn't know it at the time, but both went back to airfield. Yeah, so in this respect, just please let me know everything that there is to know in your opinion about the LA11. If you think it is okay, if you think, it's bad, it's really not worth the money, or if you think that's a perfect training aircraft. I'm really interested in your opinion, because I'm just flying it and I don't get the results regardless of what I do, side climbing, going head on with bombers. I just simply don't get the results that I want or that I expect. And 23mm guns, they should do more damage. They should do more damage, regardless which ammo belt you pick. I tried them out, and I think it was just pure coincidence that with the stealth belt I got the best results. Yeah, just let's have a look at how the diving performance of the plane is, and it's also good but not outstandingly well. My target, of course, here is the B-17G, and while I think that the other LA-11 or even the LA-7 will get hit into or shot at the B-17 first, you have to prioritize the bomber in this situation, because the F-82 is at low altitude, and actually I think he is playing with the thought of going back to base. So the LA-7 engages the B-17. Now I see it, it's just above the ground. I cut the throttle, not for overspeeding, and the B-17 actually kills the LA-7. Let's have a look. Oh, there were some nice hits into the left wing of the B-17E. It's not a G. And surely this is my kill. Nope. The LA-7 actually got the kill. The F-82 is now going back to the runway. Yeah. That's not really nice. That should have been my 4th kill. I actually did all the wing damage. Yeah, the first burst went into the fuselage. I actually wanted to aim for the wing root, but messed up a little bit the aim. But again, if you take another belt than the stock belt, you actually run out of... you have no traces with the stealth belt, but with the other ones you have too much traces. So the F-82 was registered as being dead, and so we actually win by knocking out all the remaining fighters. The last bit was not really entertaining, I know, and it's always difficult to run through this battle. Maybe I should have cut it out, but nevertheless, you know, this is how usual battles go. A lot of assists, a lot of disappointing results. However, the results themselves for the victory were not too bad. 3 kills, 1 assist, nearly 100,000 silver lines, and over 10,000 research points without researching anything. So there were no boosters applied for, you know, researching a tier 4 plane or something. Also, I had no boosters, just the talisman from the LA11 and also the premium account. So that's it for me today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give this video a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more. And we'll see each other in the skies of War Thunder.